Johan von Holstein, advisor at Starflow. He's a serial entrepreneur, a global citizen, and a visionary. Can you please welcome him to the stage?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be in Korea and lecture about blockchain, one of the most advanced and developed countries in this field. So, wrong picture. They got the wrong, that makes it difficult for me. Anyway, so let me see. I'm going to start with talking about myself, but meanwhile I'm going to ask you what is the most important thing that ever happened to mankind. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've been doing innovative companies in the internet industry since the beginning of the 1990s, and I built a couple of unicorns, and I've been looking at cryptocurrencies and the space of blockchain ever since it started. So I get a bit confused since my PowerPoint presentation isn't here. The most important thing that ever happened to mankind, every human being who ever walked the face of the world, or Earth, is not getting born, as many of you might think. It's actually cutting the umbilical cord. Cutting the umbilical cord is fundamentally essential because it would look ridiculous if you were all sitting in here with your mother in your knees. And I don't know if I talk for you, but my wife would never have married me if she was stuck, my mother was stuck this close to me, which means I wouldn't have my children, which is the second most important thing that ever happened to me. And this is really, really important because cutting the umbilical cord is what gave us freedom. Freedom is the most important thing in the world. Freedom is what gives us the ability and the right to make decisions, to make mistakes, to decide what we want to do with our lives, how we want to live our lives, and to take personal responsibility. And so if I'm now a free person, everybody knows I'm free, who am I? Am I the person walking here up and down the line to looking at you, the guy with the beard and the blonde hair? Or is that just a shell? Because actually, 99% of what I am is a brain. It's all inside my head. If I say Donald Trump, you all get different pictures in your head. You all think different things about this. We process information, we hide it somewhere in our head, and we don't really know where it is and how we use it and why we get the pictures that we get. And our brain is a complex place. It's made up by ambitions, desires, information, and knowledge, preferences, all of the things that is part of our personality, of who we actually are. And in the real world, the physical world, we take this knowledge and information and we transform it into some kind of a physical deed. We make a speech, we program, we drill a tooth, we bake a pizza in order to get money so that we can support ourselves and our families and our children, the second most important thing. So in the digital world, we have digital parents as well. We are, by checking in, liking, telling our stories, taking pictures, building up networks, creating digital identities that are exactly transparent and look alike of the physical identities, basically mirror image of our brains. And these mirror image of our brains, our digital us, is owned and controlled by our digital parents, Facebook and Google. But contrarian to what they do in the physical world, where they cut the umbilical cord, they say, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to spy, we're going to build profiles, we're going to leverage and take all the profits and the things that we can get out of this knowledge. The same type of knowledge that we actually transform in the physical world to the jobs that we have. This is incredibly important to understand, that we need to regain and take back the control of our digital identities. And that's what I see we can do with blockchain. I'm going to give you a story. This guy was working in an office, in a factory, a sewing factory. And one day he goes home from his job with a wheelbarrow. And in the wheelbarrow, he's got a small paper box. And inside, he's got sawdust. So he goes and he's supposed to go out from the factory. There's a guard who stops and he looks down and he says, what do you have in your box? And the guy says, just sawdust that I picked up, I brushed it up from the streets, I'm taking it home. And the guard looks at him suspiciously, and he looks through the box and the sawdust, and it was just sawdust, so he lets the guy go home. Second day, the guy comes again, same procedure. Third day, same procedure. And fourth day, same procedure. And the guard looks through the sawdust, and he says, I got this really weird feeling that you're stealing something from the company. but I can't find anything. I don't understand what it is. So I promise you, I'm not going to tell the office what it is you're stealing if you just tell me. And the guy looks at the garden and says, wheelbarrows. It's really important to understand that sometimes we're so focused on the sand corn in our shoe that we don't see the bigger perspective. We are so happy for the likes and the followers and the things that they give us on Twitter and YouTube that we totally forget that they're stealing our lives. We need to regain and take all this information, take it back and control it ourselves, because all the things that we're sharing today is actually incredibly valuable stuff that we could, in a digitalized world, in a tokenized system with a blockchain, be able to make money from ourselves. Money that will support us. Because in the next 20 years, oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. In the next 20 years, they expect 40% of all jobs to disappear due to AI and robots, virtual reality. Now, if 40% of all jobs are going to disappear over the next 20 years, what are we going to do? What are we going to live off? We need to regain our digital assets in order to be able to make money from it. And we will through the involvement of the influencer economy. The influencer economy has been growing basically exponential since 2013, when it was more or less invented for the first time. It is just 3% of the internet users who are leveraging today from influencer economy. 98% of all the money made in this is made by 3% of the internet users. But if you look at this exponential curve and you compare it to radio advertising in the 30s, if you compare it to television advertising in the 50s, or internet advertising from the beginning of the 90s, we know that this exponential curve is going to go on for the next 20 years. And as that goes on and increases, we go from 3% to maybe 40, 60% of the population, where more and more people can find their inner strength, their superpowers, their interests, and things where they have knowledge that is very specific and what they're good at. They'll be able to monetize this in an influencer market. We will be empowering the influencer economy. We will build an ecosystem with a company that I'm an advisor for, Starflow, that will cater to the collaboration of empowerment of man. And I think this is fundamentally important. We need to bring smart property to the influencer economy so that we can own and control our digital assets. We need creators should determine their own and decide on their own incentives. I have to have the right to say, no, this is too cheap for me. I have the right to make the money that the values that I create are worth. No company should spy or build profiles to exploit users for their own advantage. It should be illegalized with slavery, even digital slavery. We need to cut that umbilical cord. We need to unleash people, and we'll unleash the amazing values that are today deprived and just hidden. And the most important thing in life, the most valuable thing in life, is actually time. And the older we get, the more important time will become, the more valuable it is. The last week of our lives, we will pay everything we have in order just to get another week. And as we get older and more mature, we want to pay for anything that creates efficiency and cuts time, and that will be done when we know exactly who and where to find information and getting it from people that we have a relevant relationship to. Time also is something that is unstoppable, and it is a very, very pure line of evolution ever since back in the Stone Ages. And in the beginning, we were basically all slaves. There was a king, and the king was basically looked upon as God, whether it was Ra in the Inca society or whether it was, I forgot the name of the Egyptian one, Ramses or something like that. Ramses. They were considered gods. And a little bit later in evolution, they were considered sent out by gods. And there was actually, we created a god up in the sky that was run by the church. And then we decided that the kings were no longer just decided by the churches or by God to rule nations, and we created democracy. And democracy and religion lived as a unity. And then we divided democracy and religion from each other. It's just an evolutionary step. If you look then at, we decided to have gold, something that the kings said that we could have, and kings owned the whole currency system. That was then moved over to the governments, the democratic governments, to rule and control over the monetary system. It is just an evolutionary step, which is absolutely obvious and clear if you look at it in a longer perspective, that the next step of increased freedom for humanity is dividing currency from the government as well, increasing independency, making sure that you actually create money at the epicenter of value and consumption and creation. So, we believe that the empowerment of man, of finding your skills and your inner superpowers and giving the ability to monetize this, will make people be happier, live longer, and it will be one of the most important tokens in the society. So please come out, have a glass of champagne, which we invite you to at the break with Starflow. Look at this company, because I think it's very, very interesting. And I'm a born optimist in the fact that everything has become better since 1750 when industrialization started. Everything will continue to be better in the future. So thank you very much.